exchange.
Right.
This is happening in a lot of places across the country.
Well, I think you get into a really complicated area here because, and I'm not expert in it by any stretch of the imagination, but I do read up on it because it's interesting. There are cases where somebody at a young age. Now, how do you put that back together once it's happened? So, just like in a lot of other areas, there's mandatory counseling before you take certain steps. And it would seem this is one of them. And again, this is all new. So we're all making this up as we go along. We don't know. But there is information out there that suggests that in a certain number of cases, people feel that they want to do this, and then they have regrets and second thoughts, and they want to reverse it. And that's difficult, if not impossible.
Washington laws now allow teen gender reassignment surgery without parental consent. That's just weird to me. You tell me how that makes any sense. What comes after? Cool. What comes after that to say what's wrong with a 22-year-old dating a 13-year-old? I mean, I'm from Iran. In Iran, the age used to be a 50-year-old man could marry a 13-year-old girl, and when the Shah got elected, I think he raised it to 15, maybe 18. It's back down to 13 today, by the way. Today, a 50-year-old man can marry 13. I think it's 13 years old right now, and it's normal there. What if now, stories like this end up passing, and people say, oh, you got to, it's their choice, it's their choice. And then people say, I think 18 is too old. I think we got to lower that to 15. Should we fight that?
This week, we're hosting a free trading and investing workshop right here in Minneapolis. Inside this workshop, you'll learn you don't need to be a...
It's a law, right? Should we say, okay, what if there comes a time where they change the law from 18 to 15? And half the country agrees, and they say, what's wrong with that? What are we doing now? Now people can say, well, that's just the law now. We have to follow that law.
Well, I think sometimes common sense loses out, and I think we have to find this middle ground. We get so polarized in so many aspects of politics and everything else that we're going through today. You get to the COVID thing. I mean, yes, there's a great story there, and I'm talking to a lot of people about that. Is it hard to get to China? Yes. Is it hard to get the truth out of China? Absolutely. I've been there. I've done stories there. But we do lose common sense sometimes. And I think this is an area, I mean, I don't think a 13-year-old should be able to decide on their own surgery, no matter what the surgery is.
We're on the same page.
And I think parents have to be involved
millions
there.
are on the same page with you.
I can tell you this, and this is the only thing in this whole area that I can tell you for sure, is that when you have a potential transgender issue in your family, the rate of suicide is dramatically lower when a family is open and accepting and has a discussion. That I can tell you. That I know for a fact. Other than that, we're making new decisions in an area that we haven't dealt with before.
How much do we have transgenderism in the 20s? So go to the 20s and 30s. What was transgenderism in the 20s and 30s? Like this whole thing to say if it's accepted by parents, didn't we just read an article that said the number one step to somebody abusing your kid, the first step is to win the trust of who?
The parents.
I mean, that's the same argument as saying, Chris, I may be wrong, is to say, let's first get the parents to accept the concept of their kids wanting to go through it. Mm-hmm. And then once we win the parents over, and then we can get the kids. But we first have to get the parents to think that it's normal. Because I don't know if this topic was a topic, and I'd love to get more of the history of it on when it started. I'd love to see in the 30s, was it a normal thing?
Awesome.
Was it normal to talk about these types of subjects? I know it's going on for a while, but I want to know the what's the word? I want to know the
history.
Not only the history of it, again, from an investigative journalistic standpoint, I want to know out of 1,000 people that did the surgery, I want to know the profile. I want to know the parenting. I want to know at what age. I want to know, siblings. Do they have an older sister, older brother? What's the relationship with the older brother, sister? Was there an abusive uncle or person? I want to investigate everything. We're so afraid to investigate that. All we're investigating is, well, parents should be accepting about this, and that. And I think rather than doing that, we're not putting the time into the real conversation, which is, suicide in the military. Why does suicide in the military happen? What is it? What causes suicide in the military to happen? Is it away from the family? Did some people join the military to get away from the family? Are they running away from family? You mean to tell me everybody that joins the army is patriotic? I have a hard time believing it. When I was in the military, I had a lot of guys that were in the military. They were not in there because they were patriotic. There were people that were in the military that actually didn't like the country. They were just people in the military for GI Bill. Some were there because they couldn't stand their dad. They wanted to get away. And we had stories of, suicide. And it's heartbreaking. I had one of my close friends from the military that went through it. And I saw his relationship with his father. His father would slap him in the face in front of us. And I'm like, I can't even be around it. His father was so abusive to him in front of all of us. And he would be so embarrassed when he was around us. So he never felt like he could do anything to please his dad. And eventually he took his life. Was that the reason? So education is what it comes down to. It's right.
And awareness and a dialogue.
That's all I want to know. Like when you said something about James O'Keefe. You said that's an opinion. And then he said Oliver Stone is an opinion, right? That's an opinion. Well, the opinion is on both sides.
Sure, absolutely.
You said you want to get to, what was the word you used? Not the truth. You said you wanted to, you given, which I agree with. You want to find out the why, let's just say, right? I want to know the origin. The origin. I want to know the why. I want to know, there's a lot of questions I got. I want to know, did we really make the right choice going to war in Iraq? And we're like, oh, that weapon's of mass destruction. Guess what?
It didn't exist.
What was this whole thing with the way we handled Afghanistan? That was catastrophic. We just lost $80 billion. This whole thing going on with Russia and Ukraine right now, what is the real motive? Is America using Ukraine as a proxy to get rid of Putin? We don't know. I want to know. I'm curious, right? I'm curious to know what some of the things are. Historically, you haven't been in this space for a while. Who was the name of people that would go investigate the heavy-duty topics that would come and give the most fair assessment from both sides? Cronkite was more of a personality guy, but who was like the investigative journalist that would give both sides of the story? Would you say Wallace?
I think the 60 Minutes guys, obviously, and Mike Wallace, sure.
Our friend John Stossel.
Stossel did a lot of great work over the years. In a whole combination. Walt Bogdanovich, at the New York Times and other places. And whole teams of print reporters who would go after the Chicago Tribune, going back to, the meatpacking industry, Upton Sinclair, talking about all that. The Chicago papers did a great thing where they opened up a bar, and they saw everybody hit them up for bribes, the inspectors and the contractors. It was seminal. We once had a story put together where we had some guys come in and we were going to open up a gentleman's club, a strip club, and watch the people come in New York City. We had a location and everything, from the mob supplying the dancers to the people inspecting the place to do the whole thing, and then put the cameras in and capture the whole thing. And the lawyers ended up nixing it because there are admittedly a lot of issues doing that. How long do you run it? But the interesting thing was that the guys who were consulting with me on it said that they could pay for the entire project with the proceeds of actually having a club in Queens. And it got pretty high up at NBC. No, we were going to open this. We had a name for the whole thing. It didn't have, well, and I understand why. I mean, the legal questions were just overwhelming and strangling of doing something
no
like that.
question.
But, I mean, and then, you're operating this thing and you've got legitimate people working there, people going there as customers. Do you, what do you do? You wire the place with hidden cameras? And that's constitutionally iffy. I mean, it'd be great television, but I mean, the lawyers. And the best part was in the pitch meeting, I said, and it pays for itself, because we'd raise, it was going to be $400,000 to do it. And I think we're going to make back $400,000 in the first year. And we actually had former federal and local law enforcement people who were going to consult with us, who had done this for other investigations. And I thought it was genius, but I understood at the end of the day why it was
$400,000 to do it, and you're going to get $400,000 back. I mean, that would be perfect TV right there.
Yeah, but then, you got a guy who goes into a club like that for a night and he gets captured on a hidden camera. What do you do with that?
Yeah.
And you got a woman who's working in that business because she's trying to feed her kids, what do you do with that? At what point does it become exploitive versus interesting, notwithstanding all the other legal issues?
Out of the 500 people that you dealt with, did anybody ever sue you out of the 500? Did you ever get sued by them or not?
There were, excuse me, there were some attempts, none of them successful. And the reason is it's so clear, right? These aren't gray area cases. The majority of the crime is committed in the online solicitation. Showing up is just the television part of the arrest, the culmination of it.
Yes, what James said. James said, I want to see it on video. When you see it on video,
right?
It's real. It's not like it's hearsay.
But they make criminal cases on the transcripts on the online channels all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
Because it's a solicitation.
So if on a DM, an adult is going through with a 13-year-old, that can be
cross
used.
that threshold. That's the case.
That's great news.
That's the case.
Okay, that's great to hear.
Yeah, when they show up, they often make statements to me that, if they admit the crime, then obviously that can be used. But I've never even been called to testify in one of these cases because it's so clear.
Hell yeah. Sounds like Pat wants to put together a
team.
A task force, a team. You, James O'Keefe, John Walsh from America's Most Wanted. What was the guy from Cheaters? Joey Grieco. And go down to Wuhan and get that thing figured out.
Wallace was also his
Wallace.
father. Did you watch the documentary about his father?
Michael, I'll tell you a funny story. So I'm in Miami one time, and I'm off, and I run into Mike Wallace, who's working, doing something. He was doing an interview with somebody, and I introduced myself. He goes, "Oh, Chris, yeah, sure. What was it that I just saw that you did that was so good?" I couldn't wait to tell him, and he probably didn't see it, but because I explained it in such details, oh yeah, that was really good. But he was such a consummate pro, and it's not like I knew him well, but the couple times that I met him, he was gracious and kind. And during the Predator, the media coverage of the Predator story, I was, likened to him, and it was a great compliment to me.
He did some. He did Khomeini.
Yeah.
He did the Shah multiple times. He sat down with everybody.
Mike Wallace.
Yeah, Mike Wallace.
What was the name of his documentary? I Am Mike Wallace. Who was Mike Wallace?
I don't know what it is, but I know it's great. I'm watching him to learn about his story. Go ahead.
Well, Pat brought up Walter Cronkite. We're talking about Mike Wallace. People just think that, on the face of it, you're just the guy to catch a predator. You're a real journalist. You went to school for journalism. You've done all this. I wanted to get your thoughts on just the overall distrust in media these days. Oh, it's fake news. You can't trust anybody. Everything's so polarized. Jeff Zucker resigns. Roger Ailes. Cuomo. Just so much distrust in news these days. As a newsman, this must be a little disheartening for you.
It is, and I think what you've seen is, besides targeting by politicians, this catchphrase, fake news. I mean, the reality is nobody's perfect in the news business. Nobody's perfect in politics. Nobody's perfect in the financial world. But generally, most of the people try to do the right thing. But with the advent of cable news and this need or perceived need to take a point of view, Fox obviously had a point of view and it made them successful. Their news reporting during the day is their news reporting. But when you get to personalities and point of view at night, the same with MSNBC or the same at CNN, it creates polarization and it creates targeting. And I think when you elevate that for ratings, you take the risk of being painted on one side or the other. And we've lost what happens at 6:30 for the evening news, and we lost what happens between 10 in the morning and 5 at night on cable news, which is generally speaking reporting. I mean, you watch on Fox, you see their correspondent in Ukraine showing this incredible story all day long, and then you get to some of the columnist, opinionated people, and they're telling a whole different story and saying what's wrong with Putin and everything else, when all day long, their guys have been dodging shells in the field, telling the real story.
Do you think there should be a disclaimer, like opinion journalism, opinion news versus actual news?
The viewer needs to be aware of what you're looking at.
But there's such a gray line.
It is, and that's what's created this environment.
You're watching the 4 o'clock news with Brett Baer, and then next on the